Welcome to the Private Lender Podcast with your hosts from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on? What's going on? Everyone, thanks for checking out Private Lenders Podcast. As always, Chris and Jason here. We have a guest today. We have Cesar Tamayo from Pennsylvania. He's a private lender. He's also a member of the Mastermind group. He's got some questions for us. We're going to answer them live here on the video and audio, depending on where you are checking this out. And we're going to get moving right now.
Yep. Hey, Cesar, how are you?
Good. Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's get moving. What kind of stuff you got for us? We're happy to help out with anything you have in the private lending world.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So I'm just getting started building my private lending business. Following a lot of what I've learned in the mastermind training groups and your videos, which is excellent content, by the way. One of the things I wanted to ask about that you don't go into a lot of depth on, it's totally okay, but is institutional backed funds. Because I've reached out to some people and other lenders in the commercial space, and some of the responses I get is, do you really should look into that because the money's cheaper and that's where you want to be? And I know that's not something you guys recommend. So maybe kind of just talk a little bit about what it means, the advantages, disadvantages, and then ultimately why they don't fit your business model.
Yeah. We're both going to have plenty on this one.
Yeah, good question. Good questions.
We'll make sure this topic doesn't take up the whole call, though, because it could.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. You start off.
Okay. So if somebody says, yeah, that's where you want to look because the money's cheaper, that's partially true. First of all, the reason why a lot of the companies that you see out there, the only reason that they're in business is because this institutional backed source of capital came into the game, right? 6-7 years ago. And they, in essence, put people in business who, in all likelihood, wouldn't raise capital otherwise. So a lot of people see it as like, that's the only way you can be in this business. So, okay. So one, it can be a little bit cheaper. Number two, it's a pain in the ass. Like underwriting to their guidelines, all the stuff they need, giving them the control, giving them the timeline, all of that kind of stuff sucks. That's like the regular mortgage industry. We've been in that many years ago before HMB. And controlling, lending your own funds and your investor funds that are, closely held is a much better life, straight up. Can you get some bigger loans or in really good borrowers because you can do it? Yeah, but like the overall bang for the buck, we don't believe is there. Some people will. Some people will be like, yeah, but I can put out 3 times more money and and like all that stuff could be true, right? And also the other part is that capital's not always in our business. It's not always in this niche, and there's a good chance it's not going to be here in a couple of years. People don't believe that because there's a lot of people. I mean, we've been in a good real estate market for so long, for so many years, that people haven't seen the downturns. People haven't seen when things get shaky in the real estate world, and maybe even like interest rate related, financial world, other factors too. They could take their football and go play somewhere else, right? These are Wall Street people. They could make money in all kinds of different markets. They're smarter. They're like, there's a good chance it won't be here. So we personally, another reason is that we're not going to bet our business model, our company, and our future on somebody else's money that won't be here. Make sense?
Yep.
So that was a mouthful. That was a mouthful.
Well, a few things to add to that. Number one, I mean, interest rates have gone up a lot in the last few weeks, not just mortgage interest rates, but short-term rates that dictate these institutional backed lenders. So real estate investors that were working with these institutional backed lenders have seen a big price bump. Right before it might have been 7-1, 7-2. Now it's higher. It's consistent. We don't believe that we run a hard money lending company just to be a mortgage broker. Well, you want to be able to control it all. It's very, very profitable. Before we started this, you said that you're lending out of your self-directed IRA, and some of your own capital funds. You see the type of returns that you're getting on that. If you bring in institutional backed lenders, that capital ultimately, is the deals you're doing is obviously less. Capital, no doubt, is cheaper with institutional backed loans, but it is a headache, and it will continue to be a headache. And when we're in, I mean, think about this: March 2020, that capital dried up. There was no capital. There's no institutional or Wall Street capital left for 1 month. People didn't do deals. our phones rang off the hook. We were constantly doing tons of deals. The biggest issues that we had internally was how conservative do we want to be, because we weren't sure. The average deal, we did about 20 loans in March of 2020. All of them were 50% loan to cost, right? You look back and you're like, that was the best deals we ever did in 15 years, right? People were buying properties in DC for 600 grand and we were giving them loans for 300 because we didn't know what was going on, but we were still lending. The institution, Pierce Street stopped buying. All of these companies stopped buying completely. So imagine if you're a real estate investor and they come to you and you have a company and, all of a sudden you're planning to fund this loan for them. And then you don't have the bank decides they're not going to buy the, two things. Number one, they either decide not to buy it for you after you funded it first with your own money and then you can't sell it. Or if they table fund the loan, they decide that, that the terms change.
They decide that your deal's dead.
Yeah.
Or maybe the terms
or the terms change. Then you have to go back to your loyal real estate investor that you've done deals for. We didn't become private lenders and run a hard money lending company to be a mortgage broker. And if that's somebody's business model, that's fine. Like not hating on that business model. I just don't think that's probably why you or many folks that are trying to educate themselves and learn about this are doing so. And I can also assure you that doing more volume cheaper is not necessarily worth the bang for its buck. We'll tell you a story. A few years ago, we were at what's that conference called? REI. I don't know what. Think Real Estate. Is that what it is? Think Realty. Think Realty. Big conference. We do about $40 million a year. This is maybe 3 years ago. One of our, I don't want to call them competitors, because if somebody's a hard money lender and you're a hard money lender and you're comparing apples to apples, they're not competitors. They're all allies. Sometimes they have deals that they don't want to do that you do and vice versa. But it was somebody that had a similar size portfolio to us. And a few years earlier, they took on institutional-backed capital, lending out much cheaper. They had 16 loan officers. We did $40 million that year. They did $130 or $140 million that year. And they're like, Jason, Chris, I know your guys' business model because I had the same size business model, and you guys are making significantly more money than we are right now. Wow. Even though we're doing $120-something million as they scale and they grow. But I don't think it's necessary. I think slow and steady wins the race. Raise good private capital, make it kind of your own like family fund, exclusive group to kind of get into. And that's a better option, and it's a hell of a lot more profitable. I know it sounds intriguing to say, hey, instead of paying my capital investor 10%, I'll just use a bank and have it 7%. That's if it's still around. That's if there's no headaches. I mean, go try to do one deal with them. It's a headache. It's a headache. You don't want to bring your business.
Is that a complete answer?
We get loans because we can close quick. I mean, we were just joking about it. We had a deal that came in yesterday that had to close tomorrow. It was a $350,000 loan, and we're charging full freight on it. And it's closing in 2 days. We wouldn't have had that deal if bank wouldn't do it. And the reason we got it is because the institutional backed lender dropped the ball. They couldn't get it done quick enough.
So when you say it's a headache, can you just dive into that a little bit? Like
for a bank underwriting?
Yeah.
So it's go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of something you got to go through to like really grasp it compared to your own. I
mean, right now, if you went to a bank to apply for a mortgage, how long would it take, and how many documents would they need? And try applying for a mortgage when all your income is from real estate investing or rental properties, and you have multiple entities that own them. Your tax returns don't show consistent income. Potentially, they only show losses. It's
any of it. Yeah, all the documentation requirements, the time frame, like you've done plenty of loans, so like somebody a borrower sends you what you need, and you're like, okay, we're good to go. Let's schedule closing. Imagine having to send that to a third party at another company that you don't really know that well, and then you're like, I don't know, I'm just kind of sitting here waiting. Like there's no aspect of it that seems enjoyable, with the exception of the lower buy rates. But then if they're not even that much lower, then what's it for, right? Yeah.
Good. No, great answer. Appreciate it. Just looking at my questions over on this screen here.
Fire away.
You mentioned in one of your emails I got this week that you follow lists or other sources to keep an eye on the lending industry as a whole. I'd like to get your thoughts on like what some of those sources are, so I can kind of follow along too. Like, are there key indicators of the market that I need to be interested in and kind of track, as I'm running my business?
Yeah. So I wrote that email. I don't remember which, like Jay, how many emails do you get from various lenders from around like Vizio Lending, Aloha Capital, Washington Capital Partners? I'm probably on
dozens a week.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
just
probably on a dozen.
just other institutional hard money lenders that are local in your market, just to see what's up. I mean, if you talk to other hard money lenders that are similar to you or similar to us in the area, they're going to tell you similar things. And because they all live in the kind of same environment. When I said apples and apples and apples and oranges, people that use their own money, they lend locally, they all kind of have a similar product. They're not lending out at 8-1. They know they can't make money on that, or it's not worth their time, or it's not, they can go invest somewhere else at that. But so the local ones that are really using only private capital, they're all going to be around the 13-3, maybe a little bit cheaper, maybe a little bit more expensive. And then the institutional backed capital is going to be around the 8-1 or 8-2 or 9-1, 10-1, whatever it is. So we like to see kind of what type of emails they're sending out. Is it, hey, rates are dropping, rates are increasing, LTVs are dropping. When you see the influx of emails from them, someone could see the debt, of like, hey, we're low on originations, we're going to do this. The worst thing that can happen for these institutional lenders, which happens in a real estate market like now, is they're going to try to make as little amount of money as possible and have the cheapest interest rates they can to still make money, and then the highest LTVs that they can. An institutional lender should not be lending at a 90% of purchase price and 100% of construction. That is way risky. It's a firm in New York or California or out of state that doesn't know the area. And they're lending at very, very high LTVs. It's a risky proposition.
They're going in the wrong direction in every aspect. Like, they're just increasing risk, decreasing profit. They don't come right out and say in their emails like, hey, secondary market's getting a little shaky. They don't like come out and say this stuff. You kind of read through the lines, right? It's like, for a while it was like, okay, 80% of purchase price and 100% of construction. Then all the competitors do that. Then it's 90, and then they got to catch up. 90% of purchase price, 100% of construction. Or it's like, more recently they start doing the stuff like Jason was saying that just shows you they need volume. They're not getting maybe they're not that heavy on marketing normally, but now you're getting 3 emails a week. It's like, okay.
Yeah, we have a new product that's available. So I mean, think about this. If you did $100,000 loan, if you had $100,000 purchasing power at a 3.25% interest rate a month ago or 2 months ago, when you get 3.25% a few months ago, $100,000, that exact same purchasing power is $80,000 today at a 5.25% interest rate, a market interest rate. So market interest rate months ago, your exact same purchasing power was 100, now it's 80, right? That states that we've had a 20% decrease in purchasing power. The payment's the exact same, but you can buy 20% less. That hasn't impacted a lot of our markets yet. A lot of the Northeast markets and probably most of the country, that hasn't been impacted yet, but the writing's on the wall that could happen. There's still not any supply. It's very low supply, and still demand for things in at least the median housing price neighborhoods. But things like that, the writing's on the wall. And like what Chris said, they're trying to get deals done, right? Because they need volume. The reason that a lot of the institutional capital won't be around forever is there's just not enough volume. There's not going to be enough deals for them. I mean, we think they obviously are too conservative. They're not conservative enough, and they're making deals. But like, eventually, it's going to kind of crumble and run into a bad spot. And they want to put billions and billions of dollars on the street. If there's not that much volume out there, they can't do that.
All right. Got it. Okay. Makes sense. Good answer. So can you walk through how you collect the required information and docs from the borrower after you've given them verbal approval? So like,
Sure.
You talk to them, you got the numbers down there, you want to lend to them. Can you just talk about how you get from, okay, we're going to lend to you to, okay, we've got everything we now need to get to closing, like how that dialogue works a little
Sure.
bit.
So everything we do up front is verbally. up front, right? I'm not wasting. I mean, as a newer, this has changed. Our process has changed, obviously, over time, but we try to do everything verbally first before we're spending real time on collecting documents. There's no need to if the deal is not going to go anywhere. So we get to a point. I'm basing things off their number. You can learn a lot from a real estate investor by asking a few questions, like address of the property, the purchase price, the construction costs. How much money do you want to put towards this deal? If you had to put more money than that towards this, how much could you put up, right? It's like, oh, I'm looking to put in 40,000. If we came in and you had to do 70, is that doable, right? Asking that, what their credit score is, what their experience is, what their game plan and their exit strategy is. Like a very, very quick script with like 10 questions. You can learn a lot about them to determine if the project's going to work or not. If somebody's buying a property at $100,000 and it's worth $60,000, there's a red flag, right? They might not know what they're doing. If the construction budget's $40,000, but it's like, wait a second, this thing's a shell. That's not realistic. Those are red flags, right? You can ask follow-up questions, or you kind of can plan accordingly. So what we do is we go through everything kind of verbally or via email, however it's said. This is where we're going to come in at. This is what your cash to close is going to be based on what you're telling me. Most real estate investors in general, they tell the truth. They're not lying about it. If they say their credit's good, it's probably good. If they say it's bad, it's probably bad, right? I mean, there are some occasions, but like they know it's going to be checked, and are verified for the most part. So they're usually pretty forthright about it. So what happens is we verbally go through everything. If it's a go, and I'm like, yeah, our loan's going to be $130. You need $60,000 cash to close. There's this and this, and they're like, cool, I can make that work. And they have it under contract. I typically ask them to send me. I usually, if it's a purchase, I say, well, can you send me the contract so I have all the information I need to prep our paperwork and our term sheet, right? So, because I want, then they send in the ratified contract. That's really all I have kind of up front. Okay. But then I know who, the borrower is, if it's their personal name or a business entity, and things like that. If it's a business entity, I'll ask them, are you the only member, or do you have multiple members? Who else are the members? Things like that, so I can prep the term sheet. So we'll put together, whatever, very, very quick term sheet with all the info. We ask them for $400 as to cover our valuation, our inspection costs. So the process would be, let's say today I send them that out. I list everything we need. So please sign this term sheet, pay the $400. Is there a lockbox, or is there a way for us to get in the property? Can you send us a bank statement or a screenshot of an asset statement showing you have enough money for closing? LLC docs, the title company's name you want to use, insurance company name you want to use, things like that. I mean, it's a rental property, leases. So, that type of stuff. There might be some follow-up stuff after the fact. So the way that most of these work, if it's done correctly, is they'll put all that stuff together. It's nothing crazy. They'll put all that stuff together. They'll send in the $400. Typically the next day, because most of these have to move quick, like time is of the essence, and that's how we can secure a lot of deals, because you can move quick on them. And they send all that paperwork in. We use Google Drive to organize everything. So we have layers in Google Drive where it's hard money bankers, then it's borrowers, then it's closed loans, then it's pending loans, and things like that. So we have everything organized in there. We have a loan processor. We call her a portfolio manager that manages all that. So if I'm the originator, or an underwriter, I'm responsible for getting the thing committed. And then as they send in documents, Terry in our office takes over. But most of that stuff comes in at the same time, right? So most of that stuff comes in at the same time. And then I hand that off to Terry in our office and say, hey, this is a new deal we're doing for so-and-so. This is the stuff I have, still waiting on these particular documents. And then, she'll reach out to the title company and say, hey, we're doing this new loan. These are, this is the information. Reaches out to an insurance company. We need builder's risk insurance policy. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we kind of it gets processed kind of on the back end. We order our third party stuff immediately, because that takes time, and then everything kind of gets put in the file.
Got it. Okay, so sometimes you're collecting the docs at the same time as like you're doing the inspection or valuation, or roughly around there for that?
I try to get everything up front. So we just got a payment in today, for instance, on a deal that's closing on Monday. If you're organized on the front end, and when you send them the term sheet, you outline everything you need, and you verbally go over this with them as well.
Right.
Like I verbally go over, like we're going verbally over them so they know exactly what's going on. After they commit to proceed, I don't want that loan falling out.
Right.
Nothing pisses me off more than a loan that falls out, and because they have questions or they weren't fully aware. Like this is the time to go over everything. If you got to spend 30 minutes to get this whole thing locked up, especially when you're starting, because you're committing money, you're pulling money from here, you have capital investors that are bringing money in. Like it was a real pain in the neck in the early years when the capital was in limbo, and if this deal is really going to go or not. So we made a good kind of process of let's get tell me if you're good. If you're good, let's proceed. That's all verbal. Then then I'm sending them a term sheet with everything formally. They send most of the stuff back. But as long as they're making the payment, they're sending the contract, they're signing the term sheet, they're pretty committed.
There's a commitment letter, in there, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I use by term sheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Term sheet.
All right, gotcha.
That's how we use. That's kind of how we state that.
Right.
And then it kind of just gets processed simultaneously. It's not a ton of docs compared to like a bank loan. A bank loan's got 100 docs.
Right.
Our stuff has 5, so it's not all that. And if you're doing it all yourself with just a few loans, it's pretty manageable.
Right.
And pro tip on that is make that email into like an email signature, like a template that you can use over and over. So it has those very clear instructions of the term sheet is attached, sign it right away. Number 2, you can make your payment here on this link. Number 3, here's your list of documents, start emailing them over, that sort of thing.
Got it.
And then just pop it out.
Good tip.
Exactly. We just do it inside Gmail under templates.
Awesome. That's a good tip. Quick question on that. At what point do you engage the capital investor to say, hey, we have this deal, we need you to fund it?
Okay. So thinking back to after you go through thousands of loans, it becomes so routine that some of them want to see deals before funding, some of them don't care anymore. It kind of depends more on the personality type and individual preference of capital investors. But that being said, starting out, raising capital and everything else, I would do it like this. And this is thinking back a ways, but we definitely do training and stuff on this. So I would, around the time that you get that verbal commitment, so it's a deal. Like this is a deal. Okay. At these numbers, this is a real deal. And you do the process we just talked about, verbal commitment, you send out your list, we're on. I would send a snapshot, not the entire thing, but a snapshot of the deal. Like here's the area, the loan amount, the ARV, the construction costs, the credit score, the cash to close. Snapshot in the body of an email, very simple, easy to read, to an investor that you already have warm. So I don't want to go too much in, because that's going to be beyond the scope of the question. But
Sure.
I'm not going to go too much into the entire investor relations process. But this person's already warm. You've already engaged with them, and
right.
They see your pitch deck, they know what you're up to. You put them on a shelf. I'm going to get back to you with a deal in the future. A month later, you got a deal. Here it is. And you send them that snapshot. Here's what it looks like. And then you ask them to say, if you want to, you don't get on the phone quite yet. That'll come with due diligence. And they'll say, you let them know, we're working on our due diligence now and our third party, inspection and title work and getting insurance, all the regular third party stuff, prepping for closing. As long as you're good with this deal, I'll get back to you with the full underwriting link in maybe 5 business days. Right. And they commit to it then, and then you'll get back to them. That's when I would send. So then over the next 5 business days, you're adding all the third-party stuff to the link. If it's their first deal with you, I would email them the link with everything finished and go through it with them. Be like, here's our borrower information. Here's their loan application, bank statement, credit report, Here's our valuation. Here's what it looks like. The first time. After that, they typically won't care, or they could do it on their own.
Okay.
And then you say, everything seemed straightforward. Do you have any questions? We're scheduled for closing on Friday. If you could wire funds to us on Thursday, that would be great, and we'll get it wrapped up. That's it.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yep.
Quick question on that. So like, and this goes into the kind of the investor relations process, I guess, but let's just say you've gone through the process of giving them your pitch deck. I've gone through the pitch with them. You've warmed them up to it. They're interested. They've actually given you a verbal that says, yeah, next time you get a deal, let me know. I'd
Yep.
like to fund it, right? So do you have any kind of like, is there any kind of commitment that like from them other than a verbal to say, hey, listen, I've got this much money to lend you? Or like, how do you approach that with the investor in terms of saying, hey, you're on our list now, or we've got you down as part of, who we work with as far as an investor?
Yeah, I mean, it's not super formal at that point in time. It's just like you said, like you're, in the database on the spreadsheet, you have your information. Here's approximately how much you're looking to lend and or lend per deal, because that's something to cover too. During that time, you can have them sign your agreement, whatever kind of agreement you come up with your attorney between you and the and your co-lenders or investing partners, whatever you want to call them exactly.
Right.
You can wait till you have a live deal to have them sign that agreement, or you can just have them sign the agreement and be like, yeah, I mean, this is a blanket agreement for every deal. It's not deal per deal. So I would do that. And then one other thing that I forgot to mention before, but it's an important point and something that will come up. So, all right, at that point in time, before you have the live deal, you say, okay, here's what it is. Does this all sound good? You've reviewed the pitch deck. Yes, I'm in. Do you want to earn 9 or 10%? Everything sounds good. All right, I'll get back to you with the deal. We're fully funded now, but we are growing. So I should have something for you in the next like 30, 45 days, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, great. So you have your deal and you send them the snapshot. Some people just out of reflex or habit or maybe even posturing will turn down your deal. They'll say, yeah, I don't know. You've already determined this is a deal. You're the lender. You know how to underwrite. You've done dozens of them. If somebody, and they will, says for one of these reasons, like, yeah, I don't think so. I just don't know if I feel real comfortable with this one. Then the answer is, okay, this is what this kind of lending looks like. This is what all the deals look like. If you're not comfortable with this, you're not going to be comfortable with any of it, because this is your prototype. This is what they all look like.
Right.
And people will say they won't even necessarily know why. They just kind of feel like, to be a shrewd business person, I'm going to have to turn down this first deal, sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know why they're turning it down usually, but they will. It'll happen, and then that's your response. And at that point, they can be in or out. If they can't pull the trigger on the bread and butter of our business, let's just wrap it up now. It looks like it's not going to be a good fit. But most people won't do that. Your real, like, overly analytical type of people that you want out anyway will weed themselves out then. And then the people that you do want will be like, oh, I see. All right, well, if you say this is what it's all like, and these loans pay back and everything goes okay, then yeah, I'm in. That's what'll happen like 80, 90% of the time.
Got it. Cool. Appreciate that.
Pro tip.
Yeah.
Been there, done that, right?
Recording of assignments. So this is something I listened to on one of the podcasts recently, but if you can maybe like walk through that a little bit in terms of like how quickly that happens after closing or around closing, and like what the process is there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go through this one quick. There's some details in here too, but all right, there's a couple things we want to accomplish. We need to keep our investors' names out of public record. Out of public record. We don't put them on the note and the deed of trust, and we don't record the assignment. Reason being, shit goes down, they could get sued. And we know that because that happened too. This is way back in 2009 or something like that. And we had, at the time, we were putting our investors' names on the deed of trust and the note and all that. And long story short, a guy went into default and sued us. He sued our company. He also sued the guy's individual name who happened to show up on the note. And all of us got dragged into DC Superior Court to defend our case. And we ended up winning. But it was terrible. It was a really frivolous, dumb lawsuit. Some guy just trying to get out of his obligations. And for that reason, and for others, and for other just privacy reasons, we don't want our investors' names in public record. At the same time, they do need to be protected in terms of, for some reason, if hard money bankers disappeared, they could take control of their liens and get their money back, right? Mm-hmm. So here's how we accomplish both. We, at the time of closing, or right after, within the next like week or so, we produce the assignment document that assigns all of this stuff to them. I sign the original. Terry, our portfolio manager, notarizes it. And once a month, we mail them all out to our attorney's office. So, and they don't record them. They hold the originals. And all of our investors know if for some reason HMB were to disappear, they can call up the attorneys and take control of any of their outstanding loans in that way.
Does your capital investor need to sign that too, or are you just making this sign? Okay.
We sign it to them.
Yeah. So the capital investor
is already payable to them.
Yeah, the capital investor is obviously aware of this. That's part of the upfront
transparent
conversation.
Sure.
This is the reason we don't do this, or this is the reason you don't want to be, on record. But yeah, so it's just a notarized copy from us to them. It's just like a deed. Only the seller signs the deed. Right.
Got it. Okay. Cool. What do you do in a situation where you're holding back funds for rehab, and your borrower is actually coming in under budget on that, right? So you're holding back 30,000, they only spend 25,000. Like, how does your borrower? I've had a situation where a borrower has asked for the remaining 5,000 just because they agree.
They're done. They're done.
Yeah. So I mean, you can either just give it back to them when they're done, the remaining balance, or credit it towards the loan payoff.
Got it. Okay.
Either
Not
way.
a big deal. If they're done, they're done. If they came in under budget, which is rare, good for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So I've had people tell me that I need to be careful with how I approach, and I know you guys are an attorney, and I'll get legal advice on this, but just from what you know and your experience, I've had people tell me I need to be careful how I approach capital investors. I can't just kind of go out and say, I'm looking for capital investors. Can you just talk about a little bit about what you know and understand in that space?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Definitely best to consult an attorney. I don't see too many risks in the world of contacting private investors in your network, people right? That's where they all came from.
Right.
When you get into advertising and the general public type stuff, that becomes different. I wouldn't put on your website or anything. There's no invest with us, none of that. And other than that, I mean, yeah, talk to the attorney, but you should be fine. I don't think you need to. I don't know.
I mean, anyone can be a lender, right? They're going to be I mean, the way that the agreements are typically run is they're co-lending with you. You're either, it's a co-lending agreement. So I would say though, starting out as like a little hack to raise capital is if you can co-lend with them on the first few deals, it'll just make it easier. Cause it's like, I'll put, you put up 80%, I'll put up 20%, or we'll go 50-50 or 90-10. Always felt that's just an easier way to get newer investors kind of feeling more comfortable in the deal.
100% true. 100%.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about the personality types and how we should be looking for the D and the S personality types. But if for example, if I'm meeting with somebody who's a friend of a friend, right, and I don't know that person well, and I'm having this first time interaction, what are some of the things that you're kind of trying to cue on in terms of getting an understanding of the personality types?
I like that question. Okay. I would look at them on paper and then look at them in terms of interaction. So on paper, you talk about what somebody does for a living, right? Education. I mean, what they do for a living is going to be a huge indicator right there. Mm-hmm. What do they spend all day long doing? A lot of your D personality types are your type A business people, and they're going to be business owners, finance people, maybe real estate, maybe whatever. A lot of your S personality types will be, maybe they have like a supporting or admin role. Maybe they have stayed at home as a parent, a lot of that S personality type stuff. You could see your C personality types, the analytical ones, being the college professors, maybe an accountant, maybe an engineer, right? I personality types are just all over, bouncing off the wall salespeople, right? That sort of thing. So yeah, between, kind of like what their stats are, their life stats are, their resume, their CV, whatever, and then also just in interaction. In the interaction, you get used to it. You start to pick it up pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything that stands out in terms of interaction that you're kind of looking for, someone to demonstrate to see, okay, yeah, that's something I see commonly with D personality types or S personality types or anything like that?
I mean, it's really more from experience and something that
Sure.
we could explain.
Okay.
You just got to get some reps in and start thinking like it doesn't have to be with capital investors. You can start thinking in the format of a disc personality just in life,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't have to be an investor. It's just anybody you know.
Yeah.
Start like, thinking about the types and pegging people. And a lot of people have too. A lot of people have a blended, D and I or whatever it might be.
Sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, guys, I appreciate the time. You pretty much answered all my questions.
Nice.
Super
So
awesome.
those were meaty questions. Those were like proper use of your time with those questions right there. 100%.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you taking time to answer them and all good answers. And I love the content, what you guys are doing. It's super awesome for me, and I'm sure others. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that feedback. We'll definitely see you around the mastermind.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Chat soon, Cesar.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you'd enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new